This video is going to be about why the Berserk manga is ranked number 1 on MyAnimeList.net, the largest online anime and manga community in existence. It's the go-to place for the latest news, reviews, recommendations, as well as a large online forum along with many other awesome features. MyAnimeList.net also has a ranking system that averages out the reviews that individual users with accounts give each title, most of the more popular titles having a few 100,000 individual rankings, making the system pretty reliable when determining the quality of each individual anime or manga. For example, the number 1 ranking anime has an average score of 9.25 out of 10 and has currently been reviewed by 994,227 members as of the making of this video, but I'm planning on making a separate video dedicated to it. In this video I am going to be talking about the number 1 ranked manga and its legacy in the community, as well as the many ways it has changed and influenced the manga community as a whole. I am of course talking about the Berserk manga, a series that was first published 28 years ago in 1989 and is still ongoing. Yes, you heard right. This manga is nearly 3 decades in the making and shows no sign of ending anytime soon. The Berserk manga is written and illustrated by Kentaro Miura. If I said that wrong, I apologize. I am not Japanese. And is his life's work. Since Berserk's premiere, over 300 chapters have been released, chronicling the life of the main character Guts, as well as multiple anime and movie adaptations, none of which coming close to the greatness of the original manga. The first anime adaptation was produced by OLM and premiered on Nippon Television on October 7th, 1997 and concluded on March 31st, 1998. 3 movies telling the story of the Golden Age arc were released in 2012 and 13, and in 2016 another animated series was created acting as a sequel to the Golden Age arc movies. The 1997 adaptation is regarded as one of the most important anime of the 1990s, along with other greats such as Cowboy Bebop and Trigun, along with many others, as the mid to late 90s produced many great anime. The 1997 Berserk's tremendous success was in spite of the fact that it only covered a relatively small portion of the overall story. The 3 Golden Age arc movies covered some of the same material and was generally well liked by the community despite its CGI, which I for one dislike. The 2016 adaptation, however, has many problems. Although some people seem to like it, these people are almost always people who have never read the manga. For those of us that have read the manga in its entirety, the most common opinion is that it's a disgrace that should have never been made, as I'm sure many of you viewers who have completed the manga will agree upon. The 2016 adaptation's main problem is certainly not the terrible CGI that I always hear people complaining about, although having some of the worst CGI I've ever seen certainly doesn't help its case. No, the main problem is the multiple story arcs it completely skips over, the dialogue changes, and the most retarded camera angles I've ever seen without a doubt. They're just plain out lazy. In one scene, a camera literally flies through Guts' head and you can see the inside of his CGI character model. There's really no excuse for that in a manga with this sort of legacy. Now, some of you may be saying to yourself, well, at least we get another adaptation even if it is nothing compared to the original, but the problem with that line of thought is that all the new viewers that have never read the manga, and probably never will, thinking, is this all Berserk has to offer? Which personally makes me extremely upset. Now, how in the world did Berserk, arguably the greatest manga ever created, not get a proper budget along with a good animation studio like Madhouse or Bones is beyond me. In fact, I am convinced that the studio that was handling the animation could not have been a worse choice. If you look at their history, you will see why. All they have worked on are lighthearted comedies with extremely simple art, and although these are by no means bad, as I have watched a few of them and they are pretty okay, however, the literal exact opposite of Berserk in nearly every way possible. On top of that, this is their first time working with CGI, making a development choice that was already bad even worse. Now that I'm done ranting, let's get on to the main point of the video. The Berserk manga itself. The first 3 volumes may discourage some readers because it starts off kind of slow, showing the future Guts, then quickly going back in time to where the story will proceed forward, mainly chronologically for the most part, and the initial artwork is nowhere near the level of quality present in later volumes, although still pretty good for the time. However, once the reader begins the Golden Age arc, assuming they like this genre of manga, it is nearly impossible to stop reading. You will become addicted to this series. It is filled to the brim with action, drama, character development, and even a bit of dark-humored comedy, It defies generalization and is just a damn good storytelling. After the end of the Golden Age arc, the story comes back full circle to where it left off at the end of Volume 3. But by then, the rhythm of the manga has transformed completely, almost feeling like something else entirely. The reader has by now established a deep connection with the three main characters, Guts, Casca, and Griffith, and that only grows more as the story continues. Perhaps the best thing about the Berserk manga is that the protagonist, Guts, is often not the focal point in every chapter, allowing the supporting cast to get a considerable amount of space for their individual character development. Now, you may be thinking any good manga has well-developed side characters. While this is true, there are very few that do it as well as Berserk, allowing you to understand not just who these characters are as individuals, but also how they become that way better than the vast majority of stories in general, not just in manga. Moving on to the artwork, the first few volumes won't impress many of today's manga readers, but at the time that it was first serialized in 1992, it was certainly well above average. However, as the series progresses, the reader gets to watch the artwork progress until it becomes almost perfect in every way, especially the insane level of attention to detail in each and every panel present in the later chapters. In my opinion, only Vagabond, another manga of insanely high quality, which I will dedicate a video to soon, could be argued to have just as good or perhaps better overall artwork, but even that is highly debatable. In my opinion, the art in Berserk and Vagabond are in a league of their own, with nothing else even approaching them in manga. Now, some of you might be saying, what about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Well, although JoJo's art is extremely unique and imaginative, it simply doesn't take as much artistic talent and time to produce. Onward to the characters, starting with the anti-hero Guts, who could also be argued to not be an anti-hero at all too, I suppose. Certainly not a revolutionary character at first glance, but even if he starts off that way, as more and more characterization is applied to him, he becomes one of the most believable fictional characters I have ever seen, and you find yourself understanding why Guts is the way he is as you learn more about him. As the story unwinds, you learn Guts' past and childhood, allowing you to see and understand as his personality changes during his constant war against fate itself. The protagonist, Guts, is a blunt, cynical man holding an overall bleak outlook on life, which is understandable considering the absurd amount of hardship Guts has went through. His purpose in life does change drastically as the story progresses, however. Going into more detail would spoil some of the story for those who haven't read it, so I'll stop there. I'd be talking about Guts' character progression for hours otherwise. I have before in conversations with friends. The supporting characters are also extremely well done, reminding me of 20th century boys and how every character has a purpose, emotions, personalities, and ambitions. They feel like actual inhabitants of the world and not plot devices, giving the feeling that Guts is simply existing in this harsh world, and world events are in no way based around him simply because he is the main character.